Welcome everyone to our next Learn Fast webinar. This is one that I've wanted to learn to do for a while and learn a little bit about myself. The AiM Sports Open products. There's some pretty cool devices that AiM is now producing and selling, and there's good reasons for, even if you're here and you're a user of AiM products. There's some good reasons for you to know about these as well. So we're going to learn about non attaching those to non-AIM products, and then why these are important to you as well. So we're going to have we're joined today with Robbie Yeoman, a fellow that's been with us any number of times, done a bunch of these webinars with us, and has certainly been in the chat in the background working with links and answering questions. One of my favorite guys at AIM Sports. Welcome, Robbie. Thanks for joining us.
Well, happy to be here. Happy to be here. Should be
Absolutely.
some interesting topics today.
Absolutely. The Robbie's been around for quite some time, about the same time I've been around. So he's been with AIM for quite a while. Is we're just a wealth of knowledge. If any of you folks that have had the pleasure of working with Robbie, I know that you feel the same way. He's this does a ton of work on the hardware side, electronics, the harnesses, all things AIM, frankly, and is going to be here to help us chat about these new Open Pro devices. So, um, Robbie, give us a little idea of what you've been working on lately and what you're doing.
Um, we have been doing a heavy amount on the just kind of redesigning the efficiency of our harnessing department and making sure that we can really get the most out of the space that we have and helping with some retooling and some redesign. Um, and then I've been doing some custom projects for um, larger hardware integrations. So we'll be doing, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Rush SRs, but they maintain the MXS hardware system. Some of the older generations use the MXM, and I just spent 4 days in Houston doing some reverse engineering to further enhance the product offerings for the new motor and ECU package that they're using now.
So when we were talking before we actually started recording, we were talking about hot weather and
Miserable.
yeah, you just spent 4 days in Houston. That has to be hot. That was hot and muggy every time I've ever been there. So
Yeah, it was like 90 degrees with 80% humidity. It's
exactly.
just not my favorite.
Yeah.
I can deal, but it did feel like I was melting.
Yeah, exactly. By the end of 4 days, you're ready to go back to cool California, right?
Yeah,
To the
yeah.
high desert in California where it's cool, or at least
Nope.
dry, right? At least dry. Well, perfect. Again, I appreciate everybody being here. If you have any questions as we're going, we'll open up the chat box is great, and we'll try to watch a little bit of that. But open up your question and answer box. Those number one, place them in an area where Robbie and I can glance at them and find them a little bit quicker and easier. And and it also makes a record of it for us. So if we miss one, we can actually get back with you and answer those questions. So do that if you would, please. I'd appreciate it. I'm looking for any questions you might have about these products. Robbie, let's talk a little bit about before we get started and deeply into individual products. Let's talk a little bit about about the line itself, right? What is what are the Pro Open devices, and what do they do for us?
The Pro Open devices are a a step away from the standard accessory packages that we offer. So we've always offered our GPS modules, um, and we make a. I mean, I might be partial, but we make a very good GPS module.
Yeah.
And even when we added the Pro version with the IMU on board, it became a really powerful hardware tool, and it can be used outside of the AIM ecosystem. So we designed a open protocol so that you can configure a GPS module to broadcast the information that anything needs. So if you wanted to attach it to anything that can receive CAN, you now have that option. So the really nice feature is that the open hardware can also double as our standardized um, AIM ecosystem hardware. So it's just a simple click of a button and it becomes an AIM CAN device, or it can be an open CAN device. And that we took this, we had relatively great success with the open version of the GPS, and we just started extrapolating. What else do we make that people always wanted in other applications? It's easy to add a CAN accessory that you know and trust to a package. It's to a vehicle, but it's much harder to redesign that entire vehicle around it. An AIM ecosystem, so replacing a dash, replacing all the connectors, replacing the sensors, and just to get the GPS module didn't always make sense. But now we have all of these options to just enhance your current vehicle with our technology.
Yeah, interesting. And not only the open piece of it, but then there's the pro title that's added to some of it as well. And
Mhm.
in the case of the GPS sensor that I brought up on screen, adding the IMU and maybe some other things as well, right? It gives us those
Yeah.
options to do that kind of a thing, right?
Yeah, the Pro version of the GPS module is a very cool piece of hardware. It has our GPS module in there with the 25 hertz sampling, and it activates or it utilizes multiple satellite constellations. So we got BiDAO when they're active, we got the Galileo, we have the GLONASS, and then we have the GNSS, I think. Roger, you're
Yeah,
that's you.
you're good. You
I
did it
nailed them
good.
right.
You did it.
Um, so we have a really powerful GPS module that usually operates in the 13 to 18. I've seen 24 satellites
Yeah.
for triangulation, and we embedded. What else would you want in a GPS module? How about an IMU? Uh, so now this one piece of hardware acts as a three-axial accelerometer, a three-axial gyro, and we get the GPS information that we all know and love. So it is a very attractive add to any vehicle.
And there are some people that want that IMU to be mounted in center of the car, high up.
Mhm.
It's even the perfect location to place it instead of with the IMU inside of the dash logger.
Yeah, it
And
does. It
so some
gives
people really like that ability to put that IMU where they want it. So
um, it will absolutely output all of its CAN information at a very high rate. So that includes the GPS module up to 25 hertz. We'll be doing GPS speed, latitude, longitude, altitude, heading, the extrapolated lateral and longitudinal accelerometers, and we'll also get other channels to help integrate into your other accessories like the ITO message, the which is um, used for synchronization and locking, and then we also have a Unix time, or we have a just a standardized time, or we can do the lap times and all sorts of different functionalities. It also uses our track database, which we've spent a very long time developing, so you can put in all the start finish line coordinates and the tracks and everything and have them spit out that type of data to your ECU, for example. Um,
perfect.
Now let's see the GPS Open, the Pro Open, we can do up to 100 hertz. I'm going to check this right now, but up to 100 hertz on the IMU directly.
I
So
thought
that
it
would
was
be
200, but I could be wrong. Maybe that was a pre-production version. The best thing about this is while Robbie's looking that up is that we have this roof mount that is not all that popular with a uh, people don't know about it as much. But if you're in that type of a vehicle, that you could actually mount this where it's just a roof mount with the cable down inside, so it's a little more tidy to place that into a flat surface. So I wanted to make sure people know that that's available for us out there.
yeah it is a 100 hertz cap
100, okay,
at this point.
perfect. Which is good, and which is what people want for the most part. That is the number that I see a lot of people wish for. So
Mhm.
okay, perfect. Anything else about the GPS 09s or uh, give us maybe back up just a touch. The '09, we used to have heck, we started at '05s, right? Maybe
Mhm.
'03s actually, and then
Oh,
fives,
threes,
then
yeah.
eights, then nines, now nines Bs and by nine Cs. Give us a little bit of a background if you can on these '09 and '09 B and C. Just
It's
important.
really just the evolution of our internal hardware. So every so often we can have board revisions and still keep the same board type. Um, the same. So like a GPS 09 A or a GPS 09B is a major hardware revision that requires an additional layer of programming. So that's when we have to now separate the two in the software, because the way that we communicate with them is now substantially changed. So it's more than just the CAN output. It's how we activate all the integrated circuits and the processors. They require a different firmware package, or they require a different configuration scheme. So within the software, you can really kind of track these the same way with the MXSs. MXS, and then we went to the 1.2, and now we're on the 1.3, and these are just the large steps in hardware that are no longer going to work with the existing way that we currently configure them in program.
The end user doesn't see any difference. They just need to pick the one, or it automatically recognizes it. But in reality, it really was a something that was thrust upon us with the pandemic, right? With the
Yeah.
different hardware that was available for us to grab. This is the way to be able to get products, actually built, because of board changes and chip changes that were just forced upon us, right?
hmm
Perfect. And I think you answered Aaron's question to some level, right? I believe you.
Yeah, so it is 100 hertz, and you'll be able to directly output that information at 100 times a second um, to any device, and you get to control the bus speed as well as uh, as well as the CAN ID. So if you need to hit specific targets, you can absolutely do that.
And then his second question is a software question that we can't answer directly, but his second one was awesome to have motorcycles or many other devices, right? Off-road cars or rally cars, but a graphic
Smarty
in the
CAN.
Smarty Cam with roll angle or graphics, especially for the bikes. I think there's some things that we've already started down that path with steering wheel angle and some other stuff that is using the same kind of information, I suppose, right?
Yeah, the hard part, so a steering wheel angle, and I don't mean to digress too far, but a steering wheel angle actually gives the position. So as you rotate the
Uh,
steering wheel, it's moved in inches or percentage or however you intend to look at that data, but the steering wheel is fixed. Whereas yaw, pitch, and roll are going to
yeah,
be rates. So actually
right.
understanding how fast it's moving is different than what position you ended up at. So there's still enhanced math that needs to be done, referencing the pull of gravity, and then on top of that we have bank angle for
Yeah,
for like large tracks. Like let's say Daytona, I think is like 32 or 33
yeah,
degrees.
steep.
So the pull of gravity down is going to be directly affected. Like you can actually tip the accelerometer even further over than the 1G. So for your lateral acceleration, because you have that like lean angle or the bank angle that has to be taken into consideration. So a lot
Yeah.
of work has to be done to understand a bike's um, attitude.
Yeah, some of the data that I looked at originally, some of the very early data that I would look at from Daytona, where there would be no lateral G's, right? And yet you're doing 130 miles an hour through the corner, right? And not until we got GPS where we could actually effectively build track maps correctly on these super high bank corners. It was a very interesting mathematical problem. So
Yeah, it is, and I can tell you that we are absolutely working on constructing a very comprehensive tracks database, as well as hopefully being able to do all the math in real time, um, so that we can give these objects. It's so much more than just an object. Most
yeah,
people realize it, but when you actually start trying to put it all together, and when you do it just in analysis, I mean, it takes a substantial amount of time to process that much information.
computing power, and we're trying to do that in real time in the
Mhm.
dash loggers, and then sending it across the CAN to the Smarty Cam, and all of that has to happen in milliseconds, right?
Right.
So Daniel had a question there. Do we need to upgrade an existing '09 GPS that came with our MX Dash? Absolutely not. Right. This is just an add-on. If you didn't have one or you wanted the IMU built into it, that would be the only reason you would need to. But your
Right.
'09 GPS that came with it is the core of what this is as well.
Mhm.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
And yeah, we won't. It's not a requirement really. The opens are just for use without our master systems, or our dedicated data loggers and things like that. It's to be used with any number of different projects, from speed Duinos all the way up to Cosworth systems.
Yeah.
We
And then the addition to the IMU, if that's something that was important to you, then of course, then maybe you would want to update. But
yeah
Okay, perfect. You got Robbie. Are we good with the GPS 09
Yeah, I
Pro?
think so.
Okay, let's
I
go
think
to the
so.
next slide and talk about the new ACC Open. First, let's talk about a little bit about the ACC, the product that's been out for a while, and then let's talk about the Open piece.
Okay, so the evolution of the ACC was, um, it's just a small misunderstanding um, between the boss and the hardware department. They wanted a small, as small as we could device that offered four analog channels, um, and so it was created. It's the ACC. The ACC2 was the quick realization that we also wanted thermocouples, and tick, that's not normally considered an analog output. So the ACC2 was born as an analog or thermocouple four-channel expansion device. The hardware in it is almost identical to that of the ACC2 Open. The Open just gives you the further programming ability to dedicate your own CAN output. So you can now take this ACC2, which is um, much smaller than a post-it note that has four analog channels, and it can be placed remotely in the vehicle anywhere to give yourself that type of expansion. And now instead of running our standard analog channel package has four wires with a bender connector, so that would be 16 wires, four patch cables that have to run down to a location at hopefully 10 feet, maybe more. Now it's just a single cable of five wires that transmit CAN communication back to the master device.
And
Uh,
internal AIM power.
mhm. Yep,
Yeah,
power, ground, and CAN
yeah.
communication is all taken care of. When connected to us, when not connected to us, there's a flying lead that has power, ground, CAN high, and CAN low. So,
And this is the logical extension of the original channel expansions, right? That
yep.
we've had for years, and then came up with a newer package, the ACC. Uh, to be fair, though, the miscommunication. I mean, there's a good number of people that would not use thermocouples. So the
Right.
original ACC is a very standard and good product, obviously.
Absolutely.
So
The size of it alone,
wow,
it's really hard to. I mean, in this ACC Open slide, it looks
huge.
large, but
But that
it's quite tiny.
well, you can see that's the bender connector right there.
Yep.
That is a small connector. So
So just two connectors, one on each side, one for the output and power, and then the other for the input from the sensors. And it can come in a wide variety of flavors. So one thermocouples with three analogs, or four thermocouples, or any combination um, in between.
we make that harness that comes out the side, a single plug in with four not flying leads because they have connectors on them, right? So
Right.
people can get those in any flavor, in
Hmm.
any configuration. Perfect. And then of course, the open side, you already talked about it, but that adds that CAN connection ability to be able to move that to other dash units or
And it
anything you wish.
allows and it allows us to control the information that we're sending out. So we can send it out in raw voltage, or we can send it out as a dedicated unit. So if
Okay.
it's a pressure sensor, let's say it's our pressure sensor, it comes from a sensor drop-down list. The sensor curve is already pre-programmed into the unit, and your work's pretty much done. It's then
Plug and
automatically
play. Yep.
put into the CAN output. You do get to decide the bus speed as well as the CAN ID that you're going to be broadcasting on, and then you can increase or decrease the payload definition. So if you wanted to send it on 2 bytes, you can. If you wanted to send it on 4 bytes, you can, to get yourself more or less resolution. The um, the ACC2 will allow for um, many different types of sensors, from thermocouples through any type of 0 to 5 volt sensor, and it does have 5 volt and 12 volt excitation. So it's a very universal hardware system.
And what is the sample rate that you can send out over the CAN of these analog channels?
So the ACC2 can go up to 200 hertz. So it's just approaching that threshold for linear potentiometers, and works really well on motorcycles because there's just not a lot of space, and there's certainly not a lot of space. You may have small nooks and crannies all over the bike, under the seat or in the tail, or in the front fairing, but fitting an entire data system in there that had 8 analog channels and 3 CAN buses, it's just not always feasible without a substantial substantial amount of work. So this is a way to add 4 additional channels to your solo that doesn't take up a whole lot of space. It doesn't take up a whole lot of power
Yeah,
or mounting. You don't have to really design a whole mount system for it.
absolutely. And and Aaron, I think runs a solo on his bike,
Mhm.
um, n- outside of the solo two market, we can stack these, right? The solo I think is limited to one if I remember right, but all the other devices you can put as many in the car as you wish.
Yes, yes,
So
you are 100% correct. The solo is capped at one um, for 4 additional channels. The other data logging systems, so from MXM or Evo family lines up to our flagship system, you can use multiple devices, and they're all serial number recognized.
piece of cake. Okay, sound yeah, perfect. The just this device alone is just an amazing piece of technology that I've seen grow from the channel expansions and where we are now. They just keep getting smaller and more powerful. It can be mounted. There are screw holes that are and ways to mount it, but I see a lot of people that mount them with the serious Velcro and maybe a single wire tie around them. Right?
Mhm.
They can be stuck about anywhere and so very easy to install.
Mhm.
Perfect. Let's move on to the next one. And the Robbie was here, a couple months ago. We talked about the K8 keypad, and we introduced that, and we chatted about some of the different things about that. So we're gonna talk about the keypad open now, Robbie. I know this is one of your favorite
Yes.
devices. I know you've been a big pusher to get these done and get these done correctly, and you've done such a great job. Give us a little bit of an idea about the keypad and then the open version.
Okay, well, I am going to gush a little bit because the K8 keypad is much different than most keypads on the market, and the reason that it does all of its processing on the hardware itself. So it holds a configuration of the buttons, the state of the buttons, the way that you wish the lights to come on and the way they come off. It's all programmed in our software and doesn't require a another device to send that information. So when the keypad holds the configuration, the rate of output can be accelerated because we're no longer sending a command from the keypad about the momentary state of a button back to the device to then be processed and then do something with it. So if I wanted a latching variable, I'd have to process that latching variable, then send back to the keypad that yes, it's latched, and I also want a specific color. So all of that communication is gone because it resides completely on the keypad itself. So if I'm able to do a multi-position button, I can just simply program the keypad to have a 3 output state. So it goes from off to position 1 to position 2 and then back to off, and you can play around with actually how that circular logic works, but it's all done in real time. So when you hook it up outside of our PDMs or our devices, it's the message is already curtailed to come to you in that specific way. So you know you're going to have 3 different positions on your CAN output.
Interesting. That is a major improvement on the other ones that are on the market, right?
Mhm.
Being able to do that locally and not have to then depend on the other piece of hardwares to do that additional processing. Bruce asked an interesting question. Not sure if you're looking at the question and answer box, but the question is there any opportunity to use any of these devices, not just the keypad, but any of these on sim rigs? The With an AIM device placed on the sim rig, obviously you could drive just about any of these, I suppose, right?
Mhm. Yep. So it's all done through CAN. So direct integration with USB isn't there. You would have to process it and send it on the universal serial.
On the
Yeah,
CAN
you
network.
can't send direct CAN information to your PC, but there are ways to process this information. So our SW4 can receive this information in, and then that has a USB plug that can be naturally integrated. Now, the K8 does have a keypad, and I'm actually taking a note right now because um, we do actually
Triggered a
pre
thought for you, right?
yeah
Yeah.
pre-process that information. Um, so we can absolutely do something like that. Not yet though.
Yeah. Good question. Whenever we can get Robbie to start jotting things down, it's kind of like when we have Emiliano on here with the software, and he said he starts jotting things down. I thought, we did good. And then you may have mentioned it. I actually had a little bit of an audio problem for a moment, but the ability to interchange the little buttons and have them made up. We have the ability to get virtually all the different buttons that you might want, but then we have the ability to print these out and make even a button that it maybe is only effective on your car, right?
Mhm.
So we can do all
That
of
was
that.
actually um, one of the delays is in the release of the K8 keypad was what buttons do we want? Well, like where do you start? Looking at competitors and things like that, they have 1,000 different buttons. Which ones do we commonly use?
Yeah.
Matrix had to be developed for everyone to kind of weigh in. Oh yeah, we use these ones a lot, or we don't use these ones. How many bilge pump customers do we have? um, there's a button for everything. We just have to make it.
And now we can do custom ones as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. We
Yeah.
can do custom button inserts as well.
So if somebody comes up with something we didn't think of, then we can get it done fairly quickly. So perfect. Anything else about the keypads that you'd like to chat about? Maybe we'll talk about the configuration here in a minute on some of those. But
Well, one of the unique aspects of the K8 keypad is that it also has a CAN input. So you can receive information from or to your keypad to then further uh, illuminate your button activation statuses and things like that. So when it is used in um, water, um, radiator fan comes to mind when I have automation built in to automatically turn the fan on because I really don't want to press the button unless I want to check that it's working. I want to take myself out of doing as many things as I can. And so I favor the automation side of things. I still want to know that the fan has been triggered. So now I can take a message from a data logging system or directly from an ECU and say, okay, well, when water temperature is above X amount, then I'm going to be turning this button color on, and I will handle the configuration of the power outputs um, just so that I can use the notifications as an alarm mechanism. I now know that my fan is on. I don't have to hit the button. It's going to be taken care of automatically, so I can just glance down.
yeah, just even a peripheral vision, you'll be able to see that the button you see a temperature alarm comes on or something, and you can glance over and see if that button is green or not.
Right,
Yeah,
or my power output failed, and
yeah,
I'm no longer spinning my radiator fan, even though I pressed the button to do so. Something's happened in the wiring, or something's happened with the amount of power that I have, and the fan is no longer spinning. It can
there you
be
go.
a notification that the keypad provides. It just turns red.
The logic you can build into that is pretty straightforward and fairly easy to build in some very interesting ways of notification like that.
Yep. And since our last webinar on the K8 keypad is we also have the brightness settings.
Ah,
So you can go in and enhance the value of your brightness, which can come from an automated or from all of our hardware systems have photosensitive light meters, so that light meter channel can be used to recognize as the dash is dimming automatically, the keypad can dim automatically because sometimes it can be very bright in low light
distracting.
situations or
Yeah.
not bright enough in highlight situations.
So super big importance to the endurance racers out there that race from daylight to dark and dark to daylight, right?
Yeah, when we
So
did the HPD cars, we that was one of the features that I could not give to them with the
uh,
existing keypad offering, and was a real big push on the K8
yeah,
keypad was to be able to manage the brightness setting so that when they turn their lights, it was as simple as they just wanted two stages. They wanted maximum brightness, and then when
yeah.
they turned their lights on, they wanted it to dim to a specific level, so just a um, two-stage brightness.
But of course, you took that to another level and made it all automated and
And we can do 10 different stages, so we can increment them
exactly.
in steps of 10% of the brightness of each button.
That's what's pretty cool about being with a company of our size, and we have the ability to do things, but we're small enough yet to get things through. And when somebody like you comes up with somebody feeds you an idea that you can immediately wrap your mind around it and go, well, okay, that's great, yes, we should do that. Okay, but how can we do that even better? And you've come up with some interesting things. Very,
Mhm.
very cool. Okay, anything else on the keypads before we move on to the next one?
No, that's it.
Okay, let's talk about steering wheels. Not one that we would normally think of with this kind of technology, but there's a lot of it in there. Talk about a little bit on the GT32 Open steering wheel.
So the GT32 has an integrated CAN bus, and it can be used as a standalone device, so we can receive engine parameters, we can receive CAN information from a source, and we can actually send out information based on the user input. So we have 3 dials and a handful of buttons that can now be used to send out to a device that needs them. So if I wanted map control on my ECU, I can have a button that I press on the steering wheel that gives me different maps, or I mean, IndyCar's push to pass, or I mean any number of different user commanded events that can be now on the steering wheel where your hands need to be anyway. So I no longer, unlike the keypad where I have to remove my hand from the wheel and access a button, these are all easily accessible from the thumb catches.
Integrated into it. The stuff that everybody really wants to do is built into this. I mean, I'm looking at it real quickly, but there's 10 buttons and 3 dials, right? That are just up front, right in the front, plus the shift modules in the back, right? So
And what's funny is like the dials I really like for page selection. I'll build a couple of pages, and I've automated them in the past with mixed results. Sometimes it works great, and sometimes it doesn't. But with when I come in, I can actually link one of the pages to like a pit page. So I can switch it to a pit page. That will also tell the ECU to go into a pit limiter, as well as change the display so that I can actually look at more parameters, because my speed is a lot lower. I'm not actively keeping my eyes up and looking at what I'm doing next. I can come in and I can start giving valuable reports as I'm cruising through pit lane.
and I've had a couple of users that have spoke with me recently that talk about a yellow flag page. Same basic idea, but without the pit road speed limiter side, but just a series of information that they may want to see during the yellow flag.
That's
So
actually a fantastic idea. So we've done a lot of work with Flagtronics,
exactly.
and with their integration into several racing series, we've built a really strong communication with the Flagtronics devices, and we can understand all of the different flags, whether they're local or individual or full track, and we can then take that data and make it work for us. We can actually go in and say, okay, well, if there is a full yellow flag, like a global yellow flag condition, then I will have some time to check out more parameters. I can now monitor my oil pressures, my engine
Temperatures,
temperatures, my yeah.
yeah, tire temperatures, tire pressures, all of these things that you might have on the car that you want to bring to the forefront and very quickly and very easily, or automated, like you're talking about. A single button to go to bring up different things would be very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else about the steering wheel?
I'm pulling up the wiring design right now, because in addition to the buttons that you see here, it also has the paddle shift mechanisms on the back. Now the paddle shift mechanisms are going to be pass-through information, so it has a signal coming into us which stops at the paddle until the paddle is then activated, at which point we then push that signal back out. We can do that same information with CAN if the receiver is capable of receiving that information. So we used to have to manually run these wires from the transmission control module, or the ECU, up to the hardware system, and that's how we would recognize that the user has commanded a shift. Now we can actually send that. It's either or. I can send it out via CAN to a receiving node, or I can actually still send the raw signal as it comes into us and then gets pushed back out when we activate the button.
Very cool.
Now
Options again, options.
and the same with the top 2 buttons, one on each side, function button 1, function button 2. Those have a dual purpose as well. Not only are they able to be sent out via CAN, but they can also be sent out for a direct pass-through signal, just like the paddle shift. So a signal comes into us, sits at the hardware until that button is hit, at which point we then push that signal back out to where it needs to go. And the the easiest reason for this is not every device is CAN capable. And I think of your radios. Your radios are not going to input a CAN receiving node or a CAN hat to manage those signals, because it would just really be for a push to talk button. So sometimes it's still easier to just manage things mechanically.
almost mandatory in some cases, right? Still.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
Right.
yeah, exactly. The steering wheels are amazing technology. I do see people that are using steering wheels along with other loggers, but a lot of our steering wheels also have loggers built into them, right?
Mhm.
The GTS 32, this particular one we're looking at here, does it have a logger or does it need to run on a device?
It is designed to be run as a standalone unit,
Okay, that's what I
and it can be ran in either way, but it does not maintain memory.
thought. So more like a Strata, something,
Hmm.
but it has the full capability of working all the signals coming in and out,
Right.
driving those to lights, and of course all the buttons, obviously.
Yep. And the only other mention I'd like to say is that it has two CAN buses. One that is user definable and can be used to be connected to um, a number of different external sources, and one internal. So if you still wanted to use a GPS module or a Smarty Cam or anything that would attach to this device, we can use it as a hub for external information. So a great way to add additional power to your hardware system. It's not only a wheel, but now we're adding GPS information to it, a camera system that's receiving the information from the ECU through the wheel to the camera, or the ACC2 would be another valuable option. You want four more analog channels, remote in the back of the car. It's just an easy addition. We hook it up to our proprietary CAN bus, and you don't have to write any CAN code.
Yeah, all the standard plug and play AIM devices can connect as well. Perfect. Okay, I love it, and I'm just in love with the look and the feel. I feel them in my hand. They do fit your hands extremely well, and they are built with super high quality. They're very nice products.
And then we also have the SW4, which is the GT32 essentially with instead of um, the large center area for the dials, it has a color display, so a nice TFT display, and that does act as a data logger. So if data logging was a requirement for the wheel, we do have other products that match that.
But this is the one that's the open, fits into this discussion a little bit
Mhm.
more, right?
Yep.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so then the next question then comes in: how do we configure some of it, right? So
Right.
we'll talk a little bit about it here, and we may jump out to your screen and monitor if we choose to. But when the time comes for these opens and to work on configuring them and make them all work, we do have some functionality in the software now. It's been enhanced just over the course of just the last 6 or 8 months, obviously, and getting better all the time. Talk a little bit about the import feature and the merging of signal.
Well, now that we have this, I'm sure IoT, it's the Internet of Things, how your house has several different devices that all communicate over your Wi-Fi network, and they all link together. We find ourselves in that same situation that we have lots of different devices, and getting them to communicate with each other can be tedious because you have to build an encoding file, and then you have to build a decoding file, and sometimes those you have to build the reverse, an encoding file from the device that's receiving the information back to the original device. So it can become a very tedious task when you have multiple of these systems all living within the CAN network. So what we've done is developed and we're still actively enhancing some of the features for creating these custom CAN input protocols. So when you go into the software and define your CAN output, the idea is that you should only have to do that once. We'll then take the way that you have defined those messages and build the decoding file for you to use. So you've built this decoding file, and you have to take it into another device. So we would normally hop into the software, we go into the ECU driver builder section, and then we have to create a receiving file for that. Now we can just import our file into the ECU driver builder software. And you may be thinking that that's only half of the equation, because if I need to send messages back from the other way, we have the newest feature of the ECU driver builder is a merging of XC1 protocols, and this is a much larger topic, but for this webinar it really makes things a lot easier, because I can take my merged XC1 protocol, or I can take my custom CAN input protocol that I've created from my ACC2, and I can put it into my ECU driver builder software, and I can easily add another device that doesn't share the same CAN IDs. And what comes to mind is tire pressure monitoring systems. Matt makes a really good um, tire pressure monitoring system that is used by lots of people, and we have it in our database because it's so used. Now I can actually put those two together by merging the XE1 protocols. I have not written any decoding protocols at all. All I've done is created the encoding protocol and then selected from a list of one that I wish to merge it to. So it
And
really streamlines
it,
that
it,
process.
the Flagtronics fits into that
Electronics
same
too.
thing as well, right? We see those two a lot. The the trail brake tire pressure monitoring and Flagtronics, the two that I hear of a lot.
Hmm. And so we'd always, I can't tell you how many protocols I built for Matt until he started building his own. Um,
Exactly.
but he was just like, I need to add it to this ECU, I need to add it to that ECU, or it can be it can just be a tedious task, and it's just wrought with clerical error. So I use a wireless keyboard, and sometimes I'll
Yeah.
type 0.01 and the zero doesn't come across. So now I'm at zero point 0.1, which looks much different when you receive that information. So instead of seeing 30 degrees Celsius, I'm now seeing 300 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, doesn't look that much different on your screen until
Right,
you actually put it in place, and then the end result is large, right? So
right.
do you want to talk about this a little bit more with this, or do you want to jump in and do some live on your screen and share that?
Well, I think we could do the K8 keypad has the yeah. Let's jump out to live,
Yeah,
and I will show
let
you
me
some of the
stop my
keypad.
share just so it makes it easier for you to do that. As he's doing that, everybody, if you have any questions, continue to add those. And for those that are watching this live, obviously you're seeing some of this in the webinar chat. All the links that we have Matt Romanowski from Trailbreak is helping us with provide you some links. The all of those links that we may mention today will all be in the YouTube description that you'll see down below as you're watching this later. So anything we were talking about here, you'll just jump down to the description, and those links will all be available for you there. So I do see Robbie is now sharing that screen, and Robbie, tell us what you're looking at there.
So here we're managing the K8 keypad. So I already had a configuration open, and we're going to just create a quick button. This is the user interface for the K8 Open. This is how you would configure it. You plug in the USB cable, and the K8 keypad is self-powered through USB, so you don't have to provide you don't have to have the benchtop 12-volt power source or anything. It will all of our open devices are able to be plugged in via USB and powered up, excluding the GT32. That one will require external power. So if we wanted to create a button in our K8 keypad, we can set it up to a toggle or a multi-position with different statuses. So we'll have an off, we'll have a 1 and a 2. And we have the LED configuration that can be done here. So when it's off, I want it to be white for my backlight, and I can add some for position 2. I want it to be green, and we'll say when it's equal to 1. And I need to make sure that these, do this as off. And I can set the priority of these messages. So if there is ever anything that could happen at the same time, it's very important to have the priority of that message organized correctly. In this situation, the button will never be off or and 1 at the same time. So the priority is not pertinent, but I always practice the priority of the messages. This would be my backlight. This would be an activation. And we can set up the timing functions. Here, I just wanted to set a button up briefly so that we can go straight into the CAN output, where it automatically has put it into the payload data. So here we have 255 or 256 unique possibilities for button 1. Button 1 can now, I'm only using 3 of them, but I can really kind of grow what that button does if I need to. Some of the multiplier options, I would say in 90% of the cases, will be left as 1. However, if you needed to hit a specific numerical value, you could use the multiplier in this situation. So if I needed to communicate with an ECU and I was tricking the ECU into thinking I was some other device, I would have to hit a specific target. And so let's say my output was 30. I could use a multiplier of 30, so when the value is 1, it gets multiplied by 30, and the actual CAN output that is sent to the device becomes a value of 30. So we can simply do that. I can also further, this is on the spoofing side of things. If I were to be tricking an ECU into thinking I'm something I'm not, I could also send dedicated messages. So let's say I had an address at 450. I could send a string of information to that to make it think that I was a stock cluster, or I was a universal diagnostic tool, or so this would be further along the lines of like reverse engineering the CAN structure of a OEM vehicle, but that's my wheelhouse. That's what I do. So if I wanted to send out 0x, the 0x defines that I intend this to be 40 in hexadecimal and not in decimal, and that's a big distinction, because 40 in hex and 40 in decimal are two totally different numbers, and it could make or break your application.
It will work or not work depending on that
Yeah,
little error, right?
yeah.
There you go.
So here I can, we're now sending this message. Any of the other buttons are set to momentary, so when I press the button, it will just use a function of 1. So when I push a button, the output value is 1, and I send a 1. Now, another way to do what I've done here on this webinar button is to set the value in the button itself. So here, I can actually set the value that I wish to send out. So if I had multi-positions, I couldn't do it with just one multiplier because it was 31, 37, and 44 that I needed to hit. I can actually come into here and type in those values. So when I activate the button to its first position, label 1 will actually output a value that's predetermined by me. So I can actually hit those targets a lot easier and say like that's 36. So if they don't go sequentially, or there's no easy linear correction that you can perform on it, then just putting the values in here is also another option. So we've now defined our CAN output, we set up our buttons, we set up our LEDs, and now it's time to take this and create a receiving protocol for it. So here I can set this up into, we'll use AiM, and we'll say Keypad 8 webinar. The bus speed and the CAN type, so I want to use it as an ECU. Now I can come into my ECU protocol section, and it's already created the decoded file for me. So I have the webinar, the button integration, and it carries with it the flags and the states that I have already put into this, and we still have the static value here. This is already now done, and it has all the respect of, I changed it. Well, this would have had a 30 as the gain if I didn't change it before, but all the gain, offset, CAN ID, bus speed are all copied into this side of things. So I have my keypad, but I also still need to add my Flagtronics system. To add the Flagtronics system, I'm going to use like a merge protocol function. So the merge protocol function is going to allow me to take the AiM K8 keypad and add it to an existing protocol that's also in our database. I can now put these two things together. Unfortunately, I have too many CAN protocols, so
It takes a while.
saving is sometimes a bear.
While that is doing that, there is a question as we're kind of closing things up. How does the ACC2 manage 2 thermocouple channels with 1 ground? Does it swap the ground back and forth? Higher frequency than the acquisition? Do you understand that question, and is it something that you can answer here today?
The thermocouple input is managed at the integrated circuit, so we actually have both negative sides of the thermocouple coming in through the connector, and then the reference between the two of the, and I always mix this up, but the nickel side is now the signal generator, and it's taking a reference off of the ground reference. So we do that internally on the hardware to provide the thermocouple, and then from there it goes into an amplification that then is processed and sent out via the controller area network.
So all internally handled and taken care of. Okay, there you go, Andrew. There's your answer for that one. Perfect. Are you still? Is your computer still chunking away?
Yes,
Yeah,
it is. It is
yeah.
absolutely chunking away.
Yeah. We've got a lot going on here, along with projecting your screen up to the internet on top of it, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, perfect. The Matt did mention that some of the stuff you were doing earlier, you could also fake a temperature reading to trigger a fan. If it didn't work in the live mode, that was an interesting comment. The other thing that I would like to mention as we're as about some of the canned stuff and writing your own, that I'm sure we have some folks that are watching this that they look at what you just did and they go, well, that's a little overwhelming, right? So we
Hmm.
have any number of webinars that have been linked by Matt in the chat box here today. We'll have some of the previous ones linked in the description below, and we certainly can help with a phone call to our support number. There's some help that we can give, obviously, but there's the next thing is there's a lot of third-party providers out there that if you have an entire car that you're going to design and it's just not in your wheelhouse to learn CAN and to sit down and write these things up, there are a lot of vendors out there, a lot of folks that do this for a fee and would sit down and run through this for you and help you create this entire CAN network and all the stuff. So that's an interesting thing. I know Matt does a little bit of that. I think Ray, who's in our chat, handles that. Mitch Minton, I know, does a lot of that kind of work. So there's options for you out there if this is something that you don't necessarily want to learn about.
And if you could take an idea, so when an OEM creates a CAN network, they rarely ever create from scratch. So they buy a dynamic power steering module, and that has a CAN output that's usually programmed. It all has to be integrated, but they have an entire team that's working on that project, and it's for one vehicle. So when you see me running through this very quickly and it does seem overwhelming, know that this is what I get paid to do.
Exactly.
This is my job, and it just comes with practice. So if you start small with an ACC2 or a GPS Pro, it really isn't as overwhelming as you might expect, because we have these built-in tools to help you along the way, especially now that we have these um, automatic creation of decoding files. That was probably the
That was a
biggest
big
sticking
piece.
point for most people, because they'd have to remember what their gain and what their offset was, what the CAN ID was. So it's constantly going back and forth between your CAN output and the XC1 file creation, just to hopefully get it done right the first time. But I still didn't get it done right the first time.
Yeah. Well, there's
So,
always fat fingers, right? But
mhm,
or keyless keypads, the
right.
keyless uh, laptops, and whatever, right?
Mhm.
Keyboards. The other thing is interesting that you just said that as you're kind of getting things up and going there. The thought process of it, it's all modular, right? So you're doing one thing and then you end up doing that same thing any number of times to build the entire library together, this entire process. That's a good way. It's a bite-sized piece, right? and
Mhm.
and the single byte is not hard to learn and not hard to get up to speed with, and then you just apply that same knowledge many times over.
Well,
Interesting.
that
Interesting.
was, that's how my calculus teacher explained it.
Yeah,
He said
exactly.
it's
Yeah.
just, it's all the steps that you've learned. It's just we're using all of them for one problem.
Yeah, there you go.
Um,
Okay.
okay, so I think we're just about ready. We might run a little bit long, but um, the protocol merging. Now that we have actually created this K8 webinar keypad, I can now select it. So if we put it under the manufacturer AiM, and I have this K8 webinar keypad. Um, so I've selected the webinar keypad. I will now select the, let's see, I think we put it under trail break, didn't we? Ooh, am I not seeing it? Well, we can just use the tire watch one. But I can now add these two systems together, and I can change the bus speed if I want. These two happen to both be at 1 megabit per second, so I can give it a new name. We'll call it AiM, and we'll call this webinar merge, and I can hit OK. The protocol gets created, and it now
There it
has
is.
all of the information that we put in from our keypad, as well as the information from the tire pressure monitoring system.
The
So,
existing one. Yep.
mhm, and I can utilize that now in any of our systems. So if I wanted to go to my GT32 standalone, I can go here and select, I think I probably put it at the bottom. Let's see.
towards right there. You go.
You saw it?
And about 5 up from the bottom, somewhere in there. There you go, right there. Isn't that
Yep.
the right one? That one right there? Maybe
Yep.
that's an earlier one.
So
Keypad
here it
webinar.
is. Yeah,
There
this
you
is
go.
just the.
There you
So
go.
we've done it.
Perfect. And we talk about how hard this is, and I'm your test case of being an old guy that is working on this. But I recently also got a trail brake monitoring kit for my dad's race car, and I needed to merge some things together. And darned if I wasn't able to successfully build one, not knowing hardly anything. So
Mhm.
while maybe it looks a little bit complex for those of you that are watching this, I was able to get one to come together and work, with very little knowledge. So it
And we
was
also discussed several products and had an hour to fit all of this into. So
yeah,
normally
no.
we would go more in depth, and I'd love to do another webinar if you'll have me back, Roger, on more about the ECU side of things as we develop it, and we offer the import DVC protocol tool, which we can discuss, as well as the merging of protocols. There are some limitations, so um, if the ECU files share any pertinent information, you automatically get a flag. So it's going to tell you that you can't merge those two together, and that means that there's some type of shared communication between those two devices.
We've built in enough triggers there to hopefully keep the user understanding what maybe what they did wrong. The perfect. You guys let me know in the chat, and if you're watching this later, let me know in the comments in the YouTube description box. Would you like Robbie to come back here and give us some ideas of things that you might want to chat about? We'll force Robbie into yeah, to coming up with some topics from the users on top of it, right? So
I have plenty
if
of topics.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But let me know in the chat if that's something that you have an interest in, or in the YouTube comments.
Okay, I'll go ahead
Robbie,
and
you've done a great job. I know the time restraint was tight, and I know everybody is super busy. I know you've been on the road, and so I appreciate you coming on
yeah, no
and
problem.
handling this. So if you would unshare your screen, we will move on to the next step. Anything else you'd like to kind of add on the way out of that specific topic?
Um, I would love everyone to open their software and just play around with these new tools, um, just so that you can really experience for yourself the ease of integration such an ambiguous topic as CAN. This is a very easy way to get into CAN and start teaching yourself in a controlled environment. We do our best to not let you get into any type of trouble or any type of problems that may come from doing it from scratch, but it is a good diving board to get to that from scratch point. So if you can understand this, then you can understand further and further and further. This is just step one.
Deeper dive after deeper dive after,
Right.
as you learn more, and it's a great place to start. As I mentioned just a second ago, I was able to make it work. So if I think that says something. So perfect. I'll share my screen again here. We'll talk a little bit about uh, the training videos that we have that are already out there. Matt linked several of Robbie's earlier ones. They were from a year or two ago, and things have changed a little bit. So yes, we'll be having Robbie come back on and give us some updated and current. With some of the new current functionality we have coming up soon. So, but if you want to look back on any of the old ones, we have a full library of videos that are out there, and working on more all the time. I think you're going to start seeing some hardware and software short form specific topic videos that'll be being placed here very soon. So keep your eye out on the website for that as well. So the customer support, boy, everybody is Robbie mentioned he was in Houston for a few days the last week, and we've had folks all over the place, including Brick being at Pikes Peak for the last week. Lots of
We get,
folks being a lot of different places. So
mhm.
Sabian at Road America, and I'm sure all the rest of the techs were somewhere as well. We keep everybody Cameron at Mid Ohio. They have a big one. The we're out there doing everything we can do. Customer support. If you see us out there, go ahead and say hello, and give the guys a bottle of water if if it's warm. We always appreciated, right?
In
It's hot
steamy
walking
Silver
around.
Springs.
It's
Yeah.
steamy Silver Spring. There you go. So give us a call if you don't see us at the racetrack. We have an 800 number, 718-9090, and let us help you get the most out of what you've uh, all the effort you're putting in. We're happy to do it. So the next webinar, July 9th, it's going to be one of our evening ones. We're trying to get an understanding of which we want to stick with, and just watching the numbers and watching the feedback. So it let me know if there's something, if you like doing them morning and evening, or if we should settle on one or the other. But the next one we're going to do is July 9th, and uh, I've got some topics in mind, but I think it's going to be, without a doubt, it's going to be something on analysis and Race Studio 3. And there's been a lot of changes in Race Studio 3, little enhancements that you may or may not have heard about. So what I'm thinking about right now is going through and bringing up the top 10 or top 15, top 20 things that have been tweaked or slightly changed, and give you an idea of what's available for you now and what's out there. So that's what I'm thinking about. But it's a couple weeks away. We may come up with something that we want to slip in front of that one as well. So, but we will have a webinar July 9th at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Be ready for that, and looking forward to that one. So we've done we're going to end this one here, but the AiM Sports Open products, great, fantastic tools, and Robbie did a great job talking about them. If you have any other questions, make sure you give us a contact and give us a holler. We'll be happy to help and chat with you about it. Robbie, anything else you'd like to add as we're kind of closing this one out?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm always surprised at how interesting these subjects can be to some people, to the right people.
Absolutely.
I can tell you, I talk about it all the time, and most people aren't very receptive. So I appreciate all of you guys being here.
No, it's such an important topic, and the folks that want or need to know about it really need and want to know about it. So and those of you that joined us here today are there. I appreciate all of you joining. I appreciate you coming, and we look forward to seeing you next time. And if not, we'll see you out at the track or on the phone. So thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you, Robbie, for doing that. Thank you, Matt and Robinson, for here working in the background, helping on some of the questions and answers. Appreciate it. If you have any other things that you need to ask us about, contact us and we'll be happy to help. So everybody, thanks again for coming. Thanks, Robbie, for all the hard work, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. Talk to you soon.
See you guys.